I'm Destro, and this is Realm of the Lich King. In this episode, I'm going to be painting up a Skaven Warp Lightning cannon and showing off a way to do weathered wood really well. I'm also going to be showing off how I paint Warpstone. The first step is to cover the basic wood in gray and brown. Then we're going to be using a couple contrast paints here. Wildwood is the first one I used. It's the darkest brown in the contrast range, I believe. I forgot to shake it up the first, so that was why there was some lighter paint there. Remember to shake your paints, guys. After the Wildwood, I moved on to the Gorgrun De Fur, which is a sort of reddish brown. And I used that for the main arm, as well as some of the other smaller beams. The last one I used is Snakebite Leather. That was a lighter sort of tan brown, and I covered up everything that I hadn't covered with either of the other two. You don't have to use all three of these paints, and you don't have to cover over brown and gray, but I like the extra color variation you get from doing it this way. I use these three inks, green, black, and sepia, just to add a few dots of extra color variation here and there. This looks really ugly now, but it'll look great after I've dry brushed it. And here comes the step that brings this all together. Just a quick dry brush over everything of bone paint. This is really hard on your brush, so it's kind of important to have an old crappy dry brush that you use exclusively for this. But, as you can see, this bone dry brush color really does bring the wood together and make it look like old weathered timbers. And that's the metallic space coated. So for the silver metallics on the cannon, I just used black ink to line around the rivets and give those a bit of extra definition. And then dotted the rivets themselves with some silver paint just for a little bit of extra contrast. The bronze got a light dry brush of bronze. And then a wash of sepia ink. Another light dry brush of bronze after that, just to bring some shininess back. And then a final highlight of, I believe this was polished gold. It's a light gold color in any case. Alright, on to the Warpstone. Base coated everything here with nice green. That was the extra opaque green, which covers really well over black, and over top of that I used dark green to get the actual base color that I wanted. I found that Vallejo's dark green is a little bit transparent, and so I like to cover it over the extra opaque. From there, just go around, adding in lines over all the Warpstone, everywhere that there is a hard edge, really. Intermediate green first, and then even thinner lines in livery green. You can really see that once all of these lines are in place, it comes together and it has really interesting sort of electric glow effect. The yellow is targeted specifically to the high points on the Warpstone, just a few dots here and there, and then cover everything with green ink. This will tone down the yellow and make it back into green again, while still retaining some of the brightness. The little cables on the Warp Lightning Cannon got done in red. I didn't really do anything else to these. It's just a quick coat of red paint. And there we go, the actual cannon is all assembled. You can see I added some black ink to the little red cables on the front there, just to help define them a little bit more. But that's it for the cannon. The only thing left to do now is paint the crew. All of the crew got painted the same way, so I'm only showing off really painting one. All of the flesh parts were just base coated in flat flesh. All of the arms and feet and the one bare head. And of course, all of their little ratty tails. All of the fabric that they were wearing, the clothing, I base coated those in the same red. Fur got base coated in brown. And I also got all of the toenails and claws and things while I was doing the brown. Base coat's done. Quick wash of flesh ink over everything. This will shade the red. It'll shade all of the flesh. I did not do this over the bronze, actually, so not quite everything, but all of the non-metallics at least. Then a little mix of the dark red with some brighter red, just to do some highlights on the cloth. Go back over all the skin with a mix of the flat flesh and some lighter flesh tone. And unfortunately I lost some footage here, so you didn't get to see how I highlighted the fur and teeth and things, but you can see they're done here, and I've moved on to painting these lenses, which are separate, so I wanted to show them differently. I started by painting each lens with dark sea blue, then moving on to blue. Covered about half of each lens in that, and then with successively smaller lines, covered over in intermediate blue, and then a nice electric light blue for the final highlight. Once all that was done, a little dot of glacier blue, which is a sort of blue off white in the corner, just to finish them off. So what we're doing here is just setting up the base. While I was painting this, I snapped off this little piece from the front here, and I decided it would be a fun part of the story to say that the cannon had hit a rock. So I made this little rock out of EVA foam, and it's not tall enough. So I have another little piece of EVA foam here that I'm just going to stick on top of that. And what you really want to do to just make kind of organic shape is just slice off bits of this foam with your hobby knife. To make a sort of nice organic looking shape. The foam is soft, so it can be a little hard to do, but yeah, get that carved up and put on there. See, there's little gaps connected to rocks. So I'm just gonna shove some glue in that, and then sprinkle some baking soda over it. Tap off the extra, and light gap fill. The base I covered in sort of a homemade texture paste, which is just acrylic burnt umber paint and baking soda mixed together, and then I covered that in a mix of wash, 3 parts sepia, 1 part black, 3 part water. I drilled into the wheels and the base so that I'd be able to pin the cannon down. I did drill through one of the wheels when I was doing this, and came out the other side, but I'm going to be putting some mud texture paste on these later. Say it with me, everyone. Texture paste covereth a multitude of sins. And there we go, that's the cannon pinned down to the base, with the crew and everyone pinned to it. And here is the texture paste on the wheels. And with the texture paste applied to the wheels, that little broken piece of spike on the front glued down next to the rock, that is it. That's the whole finished build. You can see that I've used a few little bits from my bits box to add some extra interest to the base. And hopefully you can get a nice good look at the warpstone and weathered wood effects that were the whole purpose of this video.